I have another historical appreciation film review for you guys, and that is 1990's The Krays. This is a British production directed by Peter Medic, who actually also did 1980's The Changeling. He also directed a Masters of Horror episode and a few other things. But this film follows the lives of true story of the twin Kray brothers, Reginald and Ronnie, who terrorized the East End in the 1960s. They really epitomized gangsters, or wannabe gangsters. However you want to characterize these guys, whether they were psychopaths or just wannabe gangsters, they absolutely ruled and terrorized the East End of London for many, many years. Terrorized the guys within their gang, terrorized other gangs. Amazing stuff. I mean, there's a number of documentaries out there. There's one on Netflix about the Krays as well that I'd encourage you guys to watch if you have an interest in this at all. But when you talk about films like The Goodfellas or The Godfather, you might want to give this a shot, because this is an excellent portrayal of two brothers that are psychopaths. I mean, they're criminals and they make money through criminal activities, but they're just psychopaths. They take the Goodfellas concept way south of anything that can be described with Sicilian or mafia or anything like that. And I think a lot of it just had to do with the schizophrenia that was going on with these guys. They any slight of any kind would result in your death. I mean, they just put a gun to your head and blow your brains out as much as deal with you. There was a rumor that one of the brothers was homosexual, and that resulted in some gangland killings that I think ultimately brought them to their downfall. In England at the time in the 60s, apparently the story was, at least with the police, that unless a body could be presented, there was no murder. So what you had was a lot of people were disappearing, flat out disappearing. There was no body, i.e. there was no murder. Therefore, the Krays kind of were able to go along with all their deeds unencumbered, because nobody could produce a body. And there was a lot of speculation as to what they were doing with these bodies, whether they had worked out a deal with a local industry to basically cremate the bodies or bury the bodies under some construction projects, or however they got rid of the bodies in the East End is up for speculation. But the bottom line is most of their enemies simply disappeared, and that's how they got away with it. But they didn't get away with it for long, because their violence, it just became more and more exacerbated, and intensity of it and the regularity of it. They would just kill a petty criminal. A lot of paranoia was going on between them and within their gang, and their murders became more and more frequent, to the point where they were finally captured and sent to jail, and lived out most of their remaining lives in jail or in a psych asylum. One of the brothers ended up in a psychiatric institution for multiple times. But these guys were holy terrors. They really were, and they fought with I think it was the Richardson gang, one of the gangs on the West End. I think I got that right, the Richardsons. There was a power struggle and those type of things. But what they would do, even from boyhood on, they were just violent people. They were just violent, and they would fight. Their father apparently was or one of their relatives was a pretty decent boxer, and they got into boxing. To try to, I guess the family was trying to, the uncle Charlie was trying to give them an outlet for their rage, if you will, and so they did get into boxing, but that didn't diminish their thirst for killing and just conquest. They wanted to conquer everything, and if they had to kill you to do it, it's not a problem. So I think they started out as petty criminals and practiced extortion and those type of things, but then they were able to take over some nightclubs, and then they basically ran their criminal activities through these nightclubs. And I think they probably would have gone on longer with it had they just been more circumspect, but they had a thirst for killing. And they were also one of some of the most well-dressed gangsters you'll ever see. They were spot on with their dress, always dressed to the nines. So they were interesting in that respect. They were trying to present themselves as upper class, well-heeled kind of looking guys, but underneath, of course, they were just psychotic killers. I mean, so it made for an interesting contrast, and the fact that it's a true story made it all the more interesting. So I watched this movie, which I think is an excellent, excellent movie, and then checked out a couple of the documentaries. I'm sure you can check them out on YouTube if you have an interest. I know the Netflix one about the Krays is particularly interesting. It's about an hour long. There is a documentary of the Krays, which kind of, a lot of these documentaries are going to cover the same ground. So if you see one, you've probably seen them all. But this is a universal release. It has a documentary on the Krays. But yeah, if you're looking for a real life gangster movie, you can't do much better than the Krays. I definitely would recommend you check it out. Thanks for watching.